Welcome to Chop Shop Motors. My name is Clay, and this video is going to be a look at some of the subcomponents that I'm working on for this 32 four-door sedan that I'm putting together. So we switched gears a little bit. We've gone down the path of turning the 32 project into a four-door sedan, all super cool. Gave a little background on it in a previous video, and I'm not quite ready to dive into it and just work on it all by itself. That's all I'm going to do, but I am in a position to do some little subtasks that will hopefully allow us to get it across the finish line. And for me, those subtasks can be, what can I work on in an evening when I can get 45 minutes after work before some other duties need to happen, or things of that nature. And they usually aren't gigantic, right? So I was looking at the car and kind of assessing it. One of the things that I didn't have was I didn't have any of the interior mechanisms for the doors. I didn't have any of the door locks. And while those aren't unbelievably critical to make the car run and drive, the goal of this project isn't really just to make it run and drive. It's to make it a complete car when it's all done. So if I'm going to take and drive it somewhere and actually enjoy it, I'm going to want to be able to roll up the windows, get in and out of it, lock it when we go in and grab some burger or something. So there are pieces that need to be thought through even at this stage, a long way from being done. And those are the kinds of sub-projects that I can do in the shop at night and not really bother anybody, wake up anybody, and I don't have to get a zillion tools out. So I'm starting to do some of the assessment of what are those projects and what pieces do I need, because for the most part every time you touch one of those there's something that's missing, broken, or needs to be replaced. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to show you what I have found on the very first piece I took apart, what my plan is, and kind of what we will end up with when we're all done. And hopefully it's of some interest. It's kind of a mundane piece, but repairing it and bringing it back to functional will be good. So let's take a look at what we're working on. So the story begins with the passenger side door lock assembly. And the reason it starts there is because the four-door sedan did not come with a lock cylinder in the door. Well, the reason it didn't come with a lock cylinder in the door is because 32 Fords, from what I can tell, is a one-year-only lock cylinder, and it is really kind of difficult to find. It's lots of parts catalogs say a lock cylinder will work from 32 to 48, but from what I can tell, that really isn't accurate. And kind of here's the tell. So this is a lock cylinder from a 39, and for all intents and purposes it looks like it should work. It kind of fits in this. See if I can kind of get it started. It kind of fits in the hole, sort of falls in there, but it's going to stick out of the door because it's actually a little too long. This is a lock cylinder out of the 5 window. So luckily I was kind of watching these and trying to get a comparison. It's hard to get good measurements. So I pulled the one out of the 5 window, and you can see that it is much shorter, so it's going to sit close against the door. This piece right here sits inside the door. There's a little gap, a little air gap there, and between that and the outer skin, and then this will slide in. You can adjust it for fit and then tighten up the set screw. So I'm super fortunate that I have this one to compare. I'll probably use this one in the car for the short term, but I'll start looking and watching for one of these. You see them come up for sale for pretty, and they're pretty pricey, more than I'm willing to pay for one. So I mean, I'll pay up for it, but I don't want to pay $400 for this lock cylinder. I can buy an aftermarket Taiwanese one for $17, which makes my eye twitch. But we'll keep an eye out, and patience is good. The 5 windows a little ways away yet, so I'm probably going to be able to find one of these at a swap meet, or a buddy will have a spare that they're willing to part with for at least a decent price, and so we'll be set. So that is what got me started on this. To figure out what that lock cylinder story was, I pulled the latch assembly, the latch assembly out of the door. Sorry, I'm moving the camera around on you and telling this story. Let me get this up on the stand. So I got this latch assembly out, and you know, it was super grody, so I ran it through the solvent tank and cleaned up some of the, you know, billions of years of grime and stuff on it. And then I ran it through the sandblaster and did it again and got it to kind of be able to see what the moving parts were. And then I started looking at it to see, you know, is it good enough to just put back in, and stuff like that. So as I played with it, this part right here was really cocked. You can kind of see. So it should sit kind of straight. Should sit kind of straight like that, and it was like that, and it was way over one side. And you can see on this piece that it had been like that for quite a long time. So I got to looking, and this piece on the back is really worn right there. And the stud, I guarantee you're not going to be able to see this, but the stud, it's like a rivet piece that holds it in, was a third of the way worn through. It's super small, you probably not going to be able to see it, but, and what it was doing was, just from being used for a bunch of years, it had let that wear out, and it let this cock over. So what I'm going to do is I took that rivet out, I cut it loose. I'm going to weld up this piece and bring it back to the dimension it was originally, which was 5/16. And then I'm going to weld up this piece, which had a little crack in it, probably from this lock pawl or this kind of arm, whatever, I'm not really sure what this is called, but this striker piece, from rubbing on it and pushing on it and putting stress on it. So I'll weld that up, and then I'll build a new, I'll use a bolt and build a piece that will replace that and hold it all together and put the spring back in. An awful lot of work. Yes, these are available aftermarket, but I don't want an aftermarket one. I want to save the 1932 piece. It's going to be cool. It's going to work fine. A little bit of work here and there will bring it back to exactly the way it should be. I also freed up this piece right here, which is the lock. It works off of this little tumbler or a cam here to lock the door. And so I'm going to do a bunch of work, and then I'll bring you back and kind of show you what my pieces were and what it looks like. So, be back in a minute. Here is the latch with the slot welded up. It looks, you know, it's just built up right now. I built it up on both sides, and I had to make sure there was enough metal to bring it back from about a 3/8 slot to a 5/16 slot. Here is the other piece. I welded up that crack. That should work out really good. Should bring it back to what it was. This, I'm just kind of showing you a little bit of the progress here. I will do a little grinding now and get it, see if I can start to get it to be the size it needs to be. And here's the progress. So I took that piece, I took my air grinder and I rounded out, see if I can get it to where you can kind of see it, rounded out. I took the weld out to make that dimension what it needed to be. So now, when I put the stud in it, which I'll build out and make out of this bolt, now it fits in there nice and smooth, nice and tight. It'll slot back and forth, and it'll keep this piece right here square in the latch. Alright, so now next step, make this pin so that I can weld it all back together. Here we go. Alright, the pin is made. Here is what the pin looks like. I took that bolt, I shortened it, I used a washer on the edge of it so that I didn't, I had to reduce the shoulder, I had to put a shoulder on it, so to reduce that I used that washer as a spacer, and I used my cutoff wheel to reduce that shaft size. If I had a little lathe, holy moly, that would have been slick. But I don't have one, and this project isn't going to wait for me to get one. So that's that piece. This will go in here like that. Let's see if I can kind of show you. And that arm will slide in there. And then I'll weld it on this side. And that will be the new shouldered rivet, so to speak. And that piece I welded up should now have no plate in it. So let's put it together and give it some weld, and then we'll try it out. Well, let's see where we ended up. So here it is, put back together. This is the pin that I built and installed. Now when I keep my hand out, now when I gotta unlock it here. Now when I turn it, it slides just like it's supposed to, and this piece is now, let's go and get a better picture of it, is now straight to the door. Now if you look at it, you can see, there you go, you can see that it's got a little curve to it from being crooked for so many years, but I'm not going to dress it. I don't want to take any more off. I'm just going to leave it and put it back together. It's nice and tight now. This area right here is the right size, and then I freed up this area up here where the lock cylinder goes, so the lock cylinder would go and turn the, when you turn the key, it slides this little arm up and jams a stick in the works. So then unlock it and you are good to go. Then down here there is a spring missing on this. This is the part that the handle goes on, and when you pull it one way it puts it in lock, and to keep it from flopping into the lock position there's a spring on there which is broken here. So I'm going to get a spring for it, and then I can put this back in the door, and this little step of a latch will be done, and we'll be on to another piece of this project. Thanks for joining me as I walked you through kind of a tedious little repair, but when it's all done, it makes this latch completely usable and saves an old part. I'm Clay for Chop Shop Motors, and we'll see you on the next project.